You sit down to work. You have everything you need. The task is clear. The time is there. 5 minutes later, you check your phone. Not because anything important happened, not because you decided to, simply because something in you moved toward it before you noticed the movement, then email, then one notification, then a thought about something unrelated, then a brief search that becomes 10 minutes of reading about something you didn't need to know. An hour disappears. You look at what you accomplished, and somewhere between frustration and resignation, a familiar thought arrives: I just can't focus anymore. But here is the question that changes everything. What if distraction is not your personality? What if it is simply what your brain has been practicing? Somewhere in a monastery in the mountains of Southeast Asia, a monk has been sitting still for 4 hours. No phone, no music, no notifications, no urge to check anything, not because he was born with unusual willpower, not because he doesn't feel the pull of distraction, but because he has spent years training something that most modern people have never deliberately trained at all: attention. And when neuroscientists eventually brought monks like him into their laboratories, attaching electrodes, sliding them into brain scanners, measuring the electrical activity of minds that had practiced stillness for decades, what they found overturned something that had been assumed about the human brain for most of scientific history. Attention is not a fixed talent. It is a biological skill. And like every biological skill, it responds to practice. The human brain was not designed for the environment most of us now inhabit. It was designed for an environment where novelty usually mattered. A sudden sound in the forest, an unexpected movement at the edge of vision, a change in the pattern of familiar things. In that environment, a brain that immediately oriented toward novelty, that dropped whatever it was doing and redirected attention to the new thing, had a survival advantage. That bias is still running. Every notification is a small event that triggers the same orienting response that once saved lives. Every new message, every unexpected sound, every red circle appearing on an icon, each one is a tiny burst of the unexpected that the brain, by its deepest design, cannot entirely ignore. Neuroscience has documented how this works at the level of neurochemistry. Dopamine, the brain's primary learning and motivational signal, is released not just in response to rewards, but in response to the prediction of rewards and the possibility of something new. The uncertain, the novel, the potentially interesting, these reliably activate the dopamine system in ways that the familiar and predictable do not. This is not weakness. It is an ancient, sophisticated, deeply functional system. It is simply a system that modern technology has learned to exploit with extraordinary precision. Every platform, every app, every notification system is designed by people who understand that the brain's attention can be captured by novelty, and who have built environments that produce novelty at a rate no previous era of human history has ever approached. You are not distracted because you lack discipline. You are distracted because you are operating a brain built for one environment inside an environment it was never built for. The monks were not trying to become superhuman. The contemplative traditions that developed practices of sustained attention in Buddhist monasteries, in Stoic philosophical schools, in the desert communities of early Christianity, were not primarily interested in productivity. They were interested in understanding the mind, in learning to observe thought rather than simply be carried by it, in developing what some traditions called meta-awareness, the capacity to notice where attention has gone rather than simply going there. The practice was simple to describe and extraordinarily difficult to do. Sit still. Choose an object of attention, the breath, most commonly, because it is always available. When attention wanders, and it will wander within seconds in every session, notice that it has wandered and return it. That is the practice. Not achieving stillness, not stopping thought, noticing where attention has gone and choosing to return it again and again and again, for years, for decades. Attention grows where attention repeatedly goes. In the early 2000s, neuroscientist Richard Davidson at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, working with colleagues including Antoine Lutz, began studying what happened to brains that had engaged in this practice for tens of thousands of hours. What they found was measurable. In practitioners with extensive meditation experience, some with more than 30 years of daily practice, the patterns of brain activity during attention tasks were distinctly different from those of people with no meditation background. The regions associated with sustained attention and executive control showed different patterns of activation. The default mode network, the brain's system for mind-wandering, self-referential thought and the production of the internal narratives that fill the mind when nothing external demands its focus, showed reduced activity during focused tasks. Mind-wandering, the automatic drifting of thought away from a chosen object, was measurably less frequent and was detected earlier when it did occur. The meditators noticed when their attention had moved, and they returned it faster. This is not a small finding, because the ability to notice mind wandering and return attention is not simply useful for meditation. It is the foundational skill of all sustained cognitive work. Every complex task requires it. Every creative project depends on it. Every deep conversation is shaped by whether the people in it are actually present. What the meditators had developed was not the absence of distraction. It was a faster, more practiced relationship with the moment of noticing. The moment between the attention wandering and the decision to return it. That moment exists in every mind. In the untrained mind, it passes unnoticed. The attention simply goes, and the person follows, often for minutes before realizing the original task has been left behind. In the trained mind, the interval shrinks. The noticing becomes faster. The return becomes more practiced. Not because distracting thoughts stop arising, because the response to them has been trained. The brain does not become focused by resisting distraction. It becomes focused by practicing the return. Here is what makes this practically important. The research on deep attention, on the cognitive difference between fragmented, interrupted work and sustained, uninterrupted engagement is consistent and striking. When you switch between tasks, the brain does not simply redirect its resources, it carries what researchers call an attentional residue, a lingering engagement with the previous task that reduces the cognitive resources available for the new one. The more you switch, the more residue accumulates, and the quality of thinking available to any single task decreases accordingly. This is one reason why the experience of constant multitasking, even when it feels productive, often produces less than expected. Not because effort is lacking, because the brain's full resources are never available to any one thing. Sustained, uninterrupted attention does something that fragmented attention cannot. It allows the brain to build richer, more complete models of whatever it is engaged with. To notice connections that only appear after enough time has been spent inside a problem. To reach the deeper levels of a subject that only open to minds that stay. This is the same phenomenon we explored when discussing flow, the state of complete absorption that produces the highest quality of creative and intellectual work. Flow requires sustained attention as its precondition. You cannot enter it if you leave every 5 minutes. So, what does the research actually suggest for the person who wants to train attention? Not a monk's life, not 10,000 hours of practice, but an understanding of what is actually happening when attention is repeatedly practiced, and what specific behaviors support it. The most fundamental shift is from multitasking to single-tasking, not as a productivity strategy, as a training practice. Every time you choose to do one thing without switching, for 10 minutes, for 20, for an hour, you are practicing the same neural skill the monks were practicing. You are training the noticing and returning. The difficulty you feel in the first few minutes of sustained focus is not a sign that you have lost the ability to concentrate. It is the sensation of a skill being practiced that has not recently been practiced enough. The second shift is in the environment. Attention is not only a skill, it is a resource that the environment can deplete or protect. A phone within reach, even face down, even silent, has been shown in research by Adrian Ward and colleagues to reduce available cognitive capacity simply by its presence. The brain allocates resources to suppressing the impulse to check it, resources that are no longer available for whatever you are doing. Removing the phone from the room is not discipline, it is environmental design, making the single tasking slightly easier by making the distraction slightly less available. The third is deliberate recovery. The brain cannot sustain high-quality focused attention indefinitely. Research on attention restoration and cognitive fatigue consistently shows that the capacity for sustained focus depletes across long work sessions and recovers with genuine rest. Not scrolling, not checking messages. Rest that allows the default mode network, the wandering associative mind, to operate without demands. The moments of apparent idleness are not wasted time. For a mind engaged in complex work, they are part of the process. Return, one final time to the ceiling. 2 hands, one reaching, one receiving. In every previous episode, the gap has represented a different distance. Tonight, it represents something more intimate than any of the others. It is the space between the attention your brain has practiced and the attention it is still capable of becoming. The monk who sat for 4 hours was not performing stillness. He was practicing the return, the fraction of a second between noticing the mind had wandered and choosing to bring it back. That fraction of a second practiced 10,000 times, practiced 100,000 times, becomes a different relationship with the present moment entirely. You do not need 10,000 hours. You need to understand what is actually being trained and to begin practicing it with the time you have. Because attention is not a gift that some people were born with and others were denied. It is a skill that grows where it is repeatedly returned to. Your future is shaped less by what captures your attention than by what you choose to return it to again and again. Every neuron remembers, every thought changes you, every choice rewrites you. The gap is still there, the spark is still crossing. So become